Welcome to episode 189 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I'm the host, Kim Newlove. Today, I'm talking to Angela Orr. She's a pharmacist from the state of Maine who helps clients with non-traditional healing modalities that are pill-less. Therefore, she is the Pill Less Pharmacist. Which healing modalities does she use? She uses HeartMath. It's meditative breathing, which reduces stress and anxiety. She is also a certified EFT and TFT practitioner. Haven't heard of EFT and TFT? I hadn't either. EFT and TFT use tapping to reduce stress. Now, as I publish this on December 9th, 2022, we're going into the Christmas season. Many of us are busier than usual. It makes us feel stressed and anxious, right? The timing of this episode is intentional. During our conversation, Angela will give you ideas on how to feel less stressed and anxious just in time for the holidays. Now, if you've heard about meditating or breathing to help with stress and anxiety, but you're not sure how to do it, you need to listen to this episode and connect with Angela Orr. If you're new to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, welcome. Again, my name is Kim Newlove, and I'm the host. I'm a pharmacist by training, but I'm not in clinical practice anymore. I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. I help clients get their point across in the medical space. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical, biotech, and continuing medical education industries. I also narrate content for explainer videos and e-learning projects. I was inspired by my nonverbal son, who has autism, to combine my background as a pharmacist with my speaking voice and launch my business, The Pharmacist Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. My solo podcast episodes are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. My interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you are inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 189, and you can find the show notes on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and search for episode 189. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Angela Orr. Hello, Angela. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I am doing fantastic today, and I am so grateful to be here with you today, Kim. I've listened to your podcast, and I just feel very honored to be here.
Well, thank you for listening, and it's my honor to have you because I believe in what you do. You are a HeartMath expert. I know that not a lot of people know what that is, but I definitely want to get into the science of it and how you advocate for it and how you educate your clients about it. So where would you like to start, ma'am?
Oh my goodness, where do I start? That's a tall order. So, as you said, I'll just give a little precept of what I've done and who I am. So I'm a pharmacist of 37 years this year, serial entrepreneur, including owning 2 of my own pharmacies for 15 years here in Maine. And with a breast cancer diagnosis, actually 10 years ago this month, which I was a very uninteresting case, so that was good. But during that time, I realized that stress was killing me. And although it looked like I had a lot, I felt like I had nothing. Or I had stuff, but it was all I was very stressed. I was depressed actually at the time. So in the 10 years since then, I've went on this healing journey. And several years ago, I had the courage to sell my pharmacy so that I could have more time to really focus on what I have learned about holistic health and holistic medicine and the whole person, and not just fractionizing things. And that's how I really kind of have come to where I am. And in that journey, a lot of the things that I've learned and done for myself is now what I'm committed to helping others with, and not have them have to take 10 years to do it. And so I am a certified life coach. I'm a certified HeartMath practitioner, as you said. I'm a certified EFT, TFT provider, which is about tapping and meridian points. So that's very interesting. But what I really like about all these modalities that I do is that they're all science based. As I like to say, woo woo works because it is based on actual science. And there are studies out there that show how these different modalities. So, my point of view currently is medication absolutely has a place. However, with how much we spend on medicine and how many side effects and drug interactions, if there's something that can work that doesn't have side effects or is more natural, we should look at that first.
Not everybody thinks that way. So I like that you are promoting different opportunities because there's not always a pill for every ill. And I think that's why you call yourself the Pill Less Pharmacist, right?
Absolutely, that is exactly. And again, I do not advocate to not take pills, and I do not advocate to go off your medicine without your doctor, and I do not advocate that Western medicine is not good. What I do advocate is that there's more to health than that. There's a lot of other things that can work. And I feel that during the last couple of years with the pandemic, that really showed. And that, I think that if holistic medicine and holistic to me is really looking at what are we in control of and what can we do with our thoughts, our bodies to promote our health. And if that could be primary care versus broken care and having to go the route of only getting attention when there's something wrong. Well, let's keep it right as long as possible so that we don't have to go down that road of broken care.
I love it. I love it. I think that people need more than one modality or more than one option, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. And being in healthcare myself and as a community pharmacist, I know that stress, again, that's what really I felt like caused my issue. And it's estimated that 80 to 90% of doctor visits, and this is in, studies have shown over and over again, are due to root causes for so many things are really from inflammation. And inflammation in your body is an overproduction of cortisol. Now, we need cortisol, so it's not the production, but the overproduction of it. And so much of the overproduction of cortisol is from stress. And so, what I believe and what I try to do is I really work with healthcare professionals, primarily women in healthcare. So, I've taken care of patients for 37 years now. I want to take care of people who take care of patients. And so I that's the group that I really work with quite a bit.
That's an important job that you have right now.
Yes, especially today.
There are so many pharmacists right now who are very stressed. Yes. And just going back to a few things that you already said, congratulations on your 10-year survival anniversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I love that you're cutting the learning curve for people who are trying to learn these things that you have sought to learn over the last 10 years. That is what we as entrepreneurs do. We cut the learning curve and we sell the solutions that we've cultivated to our clients. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that you have done that. So, congratulations on this entrepreneurial endeavor.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's when I first looked at coaching or working with other people, I was like, well, who's going to pay for what? I know, but there's so much need out there and people don't have the time necessarily or even the knowledge to go and look for some of these things that I've done. And so if I can take that knowledge and then turn around and help others to increase their knowledge and to help them get to a better place in life, then that's really what my mission is.
Yeah, what you're doing has a lot of value. And I like that you're so relatable because you have worked in the community for so long. And I'm not trying to say that, a long career in pharmacy, you should leave that in the rearview mirror. You still work as a pharmacist, in community practice. So that makes you even more relatable. Not only is it the ownership and the full-time work in the rearview mirror, but currently, it's right in front of you because you still work in community practice.
I do. I'm at that point where I'm looking at retirement so I can do this full time. However, I still do. And even all during the pandemic, I did. I've been out on the forefront, administering those COVID, talking to people about the stress of how they're so worried and concerned about things and about their health and about this and that. And one of the things that I hear over and over again, and again, it validates what I do is, well, what can I do so I don't get sick? How can I prevent it? And I think one thing again that, what has been shown to us, the better we can take care of ourselves, the more we can help others. But the better we can take care of ourselves, the stronger our immunity system is, the more resilient you become to other illnesses. And I think that's really what another way to look at what I do is helping people to increase their capacity for resiliency. You're not going to get rid of stress. You're going to always have things that go on. That's just the way it is. So if I were to come in and say, well, I can help you get rid of all your stress, that would be a lie. Because stress is going to happen. You can't help it. It's just going to be there. There are going to be situations, but how can I help you to respond to it differently and not live in that? And that's really what it's all about. What I do is to help people to increase that resiliency so they can bounce back even in a couple minutes or a day, not to live in that. I like to relate it. And I think you and I had talked previously about this. In today's world, unfortunately, we live as if the gazelle is always chasing us. So we live in that fight or flight way of life, which increases that cortisol, which affects our biology and chemistry. But what if you could be like the zebra that once the chase is over or the situation, whatever, that you can go back to a state where it's more about internal balance, joy, calm. To me, is really about balance internally so that you cannot have to live in that fight or flight with that overproduction of cortisol all the time.
That's a good example. Just I'm thinking of a predator which is, I guess, stress is the predator, right? And we are just susceptible because as prey, as people who are stressed, we are susceptible to feeling less calm. And I got to call you out on your website real quick. Your messaging is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Because as you were talking about this whole predator prey type situation, I was thinking about your website. Do you mind if I read what's on it real
No,
quick?
go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay, sure. You work hard, you get things done. You take care of business, but who's taking care of you? You deserve a break. Let's take care of you. Spend a guided meditative hour with me and learn ways to rapidly reduce your stress and anxiety. You'll walk away empowered with tools you can use in 15 minutes or less each day and access any time to regain your strength when you need it most. And then you had 4 great points. Number 1, hit the emotional reset button in any situation. Number 2, decrease stress and anxiety in 15 seconds or less. Number 3, strengthen your emotional intelligence and resilience. And number 4, take control of overwhelm and harness your energy. So don't let stress be a predator. Don't let yourself be preyed upon by stress. Go ahead and talk about any of those points that you like. That messaging is amazing.
Thank you so much.
You're
Worked
welcome.
very hard on the website, and I worked very hard on how I convey, because as pharmacists, we're used to talking about products, we're used to talking about a definite outcome. You take this pill, this is what's to happen. With stress reduction, anxiety reduction, helping people to feel better, it's not always so clear cut. It's not do this, you get this. It's not always as scientific, or I used to think that, although now I know it's different, it is.
Not
But
as always predictable, right?
right. But let's
Yeah.
just take the example of the 15 seconds, in 15 seconds or less. There with the 15 minutes, well, let's talk about the 15 minutes really quickly. So
Sure.
there are studies that actually show, so with HeartMath, that I work with, is an organization that talks about, what we teach is about simple techniques and advanced technology to help with a coherent heart that really helps to influence your mind so that you can have a coherent mind. So think about a time when you're really stressed. You can't think, you have no energy, you just feel zapped. We have shown with the studies that we have that if you can practice 15 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be contiguous, it can be even 5-minute sessions throughout the day, but 15 minutes a day can really help you to raise that bar of your emotional intelligence. And raising your emotional intelligence is really all about self-regulation. So it's about, how can I not respond to my boss coming in the room and just triggering me by doing that? How can I change the way that I think about him, and know that just because I have a thought doesn't mean that it's real, or I don't have to give I don't have to believe it. I can say, okay, that's what you think, but that's not true. I can replace that thought. People don't even realize that they can do that. They just think that because they have a thought that their boss is going to come in and make their life miserable, that's true. So then what happens is that happens, rather than trying to switch their thought out. So to me, that's part of that emotional intelligence, is really just getting back into thinking differently about things, and really being able to pivot in the moment. So the 15 minutes, and I tell people, if you don't have 15 minutes a day, then you should really do it for 30. No, because 15 minutes a day, we should all give ourselves that gift of 15 minutes a day or more. And then taking the things that I use with HeartMath, or I've developed some other things too. It's a way to be able, again, in that moment when your boss comes in, how can you stop that negative thought, drop down into your heart, do some simple breaths. It's not about, people think breath work, oh, you're like going to pass out almost because you're like, no, it's not that at all. It's just very simple, slower than normal breath, dropping into your heart, which is very, very intuitive, and to be able to release that in that moment. And it's amazing how something just very simple like that can totally change that interaction with your boss, or your mother-in-law, or your child who's giving you a hard time at the time, or your coworker. Just the simple things like that can just make such a difference. And that's part of what I teach. So those are just some examples of some of the things that I do.
I love what you're saying because I really believe in this. I think that there is a mind-body connection. And in our pre-interview, we experienced together some of this heart math, this breathing and touching your heart, your chest, and trying to connect the two. And in that moment, release the stress. You're talking about a boss being a source of stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sources of stress, and
A lot.
let's talk about community practice here. Your work queue has hundreds of prescriptions to check. Your email inbox has hundreds of emails in it. Other examples, I mean, there's just so many, but things that make your heart go pitter patter, you can realize that you are stressed in that moment. And that's okay to recognize and identify that emotion as stressed. And by breathing and touching your chest in ways that Angela can teach you, you can lower that stress and you can get to the point of relieving that stress quicker with practice. I really believe in this. Would you like to add anything to that?
What you said was pivotal, and that was practice. Doing it one time, you may not always find is a skill. Really recognizing those emotions that you're feeling at the time, doing a technique or doing something to help relieve it in the moment, and then releasing it. It is a skill, and it just takes practice. Just like being happy really is a skill. And I've read many books, and you may think some people may give some real pushback to that, but it's true because it's about what we train our mind to think.
Yes. I truly believe that you can train your mind to help your body relax. But like you said, you have to put in some work. 3 minutes, 5 times a day, 15 minutes at a time, whatever. But this girl, Angela Orr, can teach you how to do it. I truly believe that. And I'll tell you why I believe this. It's not that Angela has had me as a client. I independently had an experience that is similar to what she teaches. And I truly believe that it could be the same thing. I went through voice therapy. I forget which episode of my podcast I talk about this in, but during voice therapy, I learned breathing exercises. And in a little bit, I'll ask Angela to explain some of the breathing exercises that she promotes. But my breathing exercises are very similar to what she talks about in her client provider relationships. But then separately, I had to go to a counselor to talk about how to relieve tension in my throat muscles, if you can believe that. If you can imagine, I go to this counselor and he teaches me a way to go to my happy place, to re experience something that brings me joy and reduces stress. And that is very similar to something that Angela does. So at this point, I'm going to toss it over to you, Angela, and I'm going to ask you, can you talk about the breathing piece and the re experiencing something joyful to get your mind in the zone?
Absolutely. With what I teach, again, the breathing technique, one of the core, because there's several, but one of the core ones with HeartMath is about heart activated breathing. So this takes us back to, you know, a lot of people do not realize that the heart actually sends out more information than the brain. When somebody walks in the room, before you even know them, you have this intuition or this feeling about a good or bad, somebody say who's maybe negative. Let's look at that. And they come in the room and it's like kind of the energy vampire, but your heart knows that. Whereas if somebody really good walks in, you're like, oh, I like their energy. And it's been shown again, scientifically, that your heart intuitively knows so much more and sends more information to the brain than the brain does to the heart. And so when we can have our heart beating and operating in a coherent state, which we measure through heart rate variability, which I know a lot of new devices do that, like the O-ring or the different Apple watches, a lot of different devices, as I said, that people are now using measure a lot of different things, but heart rate variability, HRV, is one of the big ones. With our technology, I feel it's different than some of them because it's much more precise than some of the other technology out there. But that measures the timing between the heartbeats. So is there's a whole science, and we don't have time now to go into that. But just know that the heart rate variability, if you think of waves that are incoherent and up and down and inconsistent, that's what happens when you are in an incoherent state. Now, it doesn't mean you're not thinking or you're incoherent or whatever, but just think about when you're really stressed. Like you can just almost kind of feel like you just know, and you're tense and your heart. Whereas when you're in a coherent state, and think about again, waves on a graph, which us as science people or medical people know what that looks like. And it's very smooth, very smooth. That is when the waves are up and down and are in a more rhythmic pattern, because your heart rate variability is more predictable and is a more rhythmic function. And breathing has a lot to do with that. But it's more than just breathing, it's really about heart-centered breathing. So there's a way to so a breath technique, and there are different things for different people. What I have found though with this is that it's so simple and anybody can do it. You can do it anywhere. So it's a matter of slowing your breathing down, trying to take 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out, whatever's comfortable for the person, but really focusing on your heart. And I instruct people, and most of us in HeartMath to do this also, is to actually touch your heart so that you can really center your breath there and breathing in and out through your heart area for even, like I said, Kim, earlier, the 15 seconds, a minute. I do it in the pharmacy when it's really, really crazy. And I almost feel like I'm in a movie, like the Matrix. Like you see everything happening around you and it's chaotic. And there's, I need this, I need that. And the customer is talking to the tech kind of bad. And you've got a phone call and this, that. I'll just stop. And I just put my hand on my heart and I just take I close my eyes, kind of just stand right there. Nobody even notices because they're all doing their own thing. And just take 15 seconds to 30 seconds to just kind of refresh myself, take that time to really breathe in and out through my heart area and just kind of try to release all the stress that's going on in the moment. And then I feel really it is so amazing how something so simple can be so profound. When you have time, I don't always in that kind of situation, but say I go to the ladies' room or at lunch or whatever, then I'll add in a feeling, a positive feeling, because that really activates that heart rate variability even more. And it's not just thinking about a positive memory, but it's about experiencing that feeling again in the moment, because your brain doesn't know whether something's happening now or happened in the past. Because when you're feeling something, the feelings change your chemicals in your body.
I believe that. Yes. Thinking about puppy dogs, for example, is far different from thinking about watching your teenager, who's fighting you about something, cleaning their room, for example, two completely different emotions, right? But I
And
think,
think about how your body feels when you think those two different things.
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I feel stressed just thinking about asking my son to clean his room. He is a baseball umpire and he has equipment all over the one side of his bed. And yeah, it's just a mess. If I need to sweep in there, I'm not even going to go there because now I feel stressed. But an example of what you were explaining, you were talking about the 5 and 5, breathing in for 5 and, exhaling for 5. One of the things that I do, I don't even count it necessarily, but I'm breathing in through my nose, maybe for 5 seconds, let's just say, holding it for a second, and then slowly exhaling through my mouth. Maybe it's 5 seconds, maybe it's more. The time that you put into it is not as important as actually doing that. And in your messaging on your website, you were talking about decreasing stress and anxiety in 15 seconds or less. So imagine the breathing part and then adding the part about the puppy dogs. If you pair those two things together, you will be able to decrease your stress and anxiety with practice. Okay. You will be able to do it in 15 seconds. I completely agree with what you're saying in your messaging on your website.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've done it myself. My clients have done that. And what happens with practice is in doing that over and over again, there's not a lot of situations that I can run into now where it has me say off the mark for days at a time. Whereas before that would always be there. And it has really helped me in the last couple of years. I stopped drinking alcohol. I felt like I was a functional alcoholic, to be honest with you. And I'm really using it now in other areas of my health, released quite a bit of weight this year, doing some other things. But this is, so this is just the breathing part. Plus I teach meditation and journaling. And I was just talking to somebody about meditation, and meditation actually, and everybody, I know so many people say, well, I don't have time for that, or I can't do it right, or this, or that. And it is so much easier than you think. And it's, again, just a matter of putting the time in. But meditation, again, there are so many studies out there that have shown how it can physiologically change your health. I mean, I just went to the doctor myself, and between the breathing and then the meditation and all of that, my A1C at one point was 8 point something when because I was like 70 pounds heavier than I am now at one point, actually even more than that. But then it was 7 for a long time. And in the last year, my graph has gone and it's at 6.0 now.
Hey, all
And
right.
I sent somebody some studies. There were actually 4 studies that I have that show how meditation can affect diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically.
Wow, that's really interesting. So not only could a woman in healthcare use this to help herself, but maybe this is something she could even use as a treatment for type 2 diabetes for patients. So yeah, this
Absolutely.
is
And
great.
two of the studies were from NIH.
Oh, very reputable sources.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that I really am committed to doing. So I feel like this work has done so much for me and the clients that I work with, because it's not just about, it is definitely about decreasing stress and anxiety. But when I was looking at some of the results that some of my clients have had somebody go off insulin, had somebody go off some blood pressure, had a lot of people not go on medication because of it. Again, like this, and I'm not advocating to go off, but if you can, because you've decreased those markers in your body, isn't that what we want anyway? And so I'm really committed to not only doing this kind of work with other practitioners, I'm working on some corporate programs. So I'm working on programs for employees, specifically in healthcare. And with HeartMath, we have a plethora of studies that we have done with various institutes, such as a small grocery store chain out in the Midwest, where pharmacist errors were reduced because of reduced stress. A statistically difference. Kaiser Home Health and Hospice, they were able to increase some of their government scores because of the employee stress reduction and therefore better patient care. So I'm working on some programs um, for teams or organizations, but also my goal is to develop a program for independent pharmacies for their patients.
Nice. You will end up extending your reach and growing your
Yes.
impact.
Yeah. And
Yes.
that's exactly it. If I can help people to live happier, healthier lives, that's what I'm to do.
This is a great tool for people to use. I truly believe that. Lots of benefits. And I enjoyed hearing who your target audience is or your target client. First, you were talking about women who are in healthcare, right? I'm sure men, you'd be happy to work with men too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just happen to work mostly with women.
Yeah, you have to kind of niche down and then you'll end up attracting people who are one offs, right? And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, that's great. But then you were also talking about corporate clients and then eventually helping them help their patients. Is that what I heard?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
great. You got to know who your target client is, and you
Absolutely.
certainly do.
And I think especially with the corporate programs or the programs for pharmacies for their patients, it would be another revenue source for independent pharmacies, which is important to me because as a former independent pharmacy owner, I truly believe in independent pharmacy. But it's also a thing that, to me, if you look at the holistic side of this, the side effects are happiness, health. There's no downside effects to a lot to the things that we do. It's not therapy. I don't do therapy necessarily. Um, so I'm not advocating that, but it's just even how can we live better day in, day out to make our overall health better.
Angela, let's talk about measuring stress. How does anybody know that they're actually less stressed after using heart math and breathing techniques and all of this? Is there a way to measure stress? And is there something that you're qualified to do to measure stress?
That's funny that you ask because there are several ways actually to measure stress with heart math specifically. With heart math, we have, like I said, the HRV device, which is called Inner Balance. Or there's another piece of technology that we have that's called M-Wave. And the M-Wave is basically the same type of thing, but it's for a computer and multiple people. You can have more than one person using it. The Inner Balance is a device that you wear during a session. It is not something that you wear all the time, but it will actually measure when you're in a coherent heart state and when you're not. And it, again, because it's a podcast, it's hard to explain it. If anybody's interested, I could certainly send information or give you information if you contact me. But what's really interesting is that you wear the device, it's attached, or you pair it with an app on your phone. You actually can measure the time that you're in a coherent state when you're not in a coherent state. But the great thing is it's basically a biofeedback type of device. So again, with training and with practice, you can practice how to drop into a coherent state. So that's really interesting. And then they kind of gamify it a little bit because that's what so many people are used to today is like for the M wave, which can be used by multiple people. There's different ways that you can actually use it, not only with adults, but with children. And so it helps children by doing these different games and doing these different things on there, not just for entertainment, but to really help them to recognize their feelings and talk about it and to be able to express things. So it's really interesting. We have a lot of resources and things for children and young adults as well as adults. The other way that we measure stress is we have and I'm a certified stress and well-being assessment provider. So I'm as I said, I'm certified to do that. But what I really like about the stress and well-being assessment is that it is a basically questionnaire that somebody would take. I use it at the beginning of my coaching period with somebody, during the middle, and at the end. So you can actually see we don't just look at stress, but we look at well-being. And the great thing about it is it really can help you pinpoint what areas that you're stressed in that you may or may not even realize. And then to develop a blueprint or a roadmap of where we want to go to help in those specific areas. The tool was actually developed with HeartMath and a large hospital organization out in the West Coast. And it worked so well because what they did is by coming up with this tool, putting it through a computer system and is normalized against 10,000 other tests. So they came up with a scientific way in order to rank all of the answers so that it really is useful for the person and the practitioner. And because it went so well with that institution, HeartMath decided to take the program, make a few changes, and offer it to their practitioner community to use for their clients.
Interesting. I will definitely put links to the Inner Balance and the M Wave that you mentioned in the show notes so people can just kind of look at it.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting. You can kind of measure a baseline and then in the middle of working with you and then at the end. And that also kind of clues me in that working with you is not a one-time thing. Can you talk a little bit about what can people expect when they work with you? For what length of time and how often?
So I do have a one-time session, which I call your inner oasis. And so I do have that available. But what I have found is that so many people who have done that want to go on to do more because it really is just an introduction to some of the very simple things. What people find most helpful, though, is repeatedly going over things and accountability. As we all know, the accountability, just like when we were in school, is helpful to really make sure you stay on track. So I work with people generally for 6 months. I can work with somebody for 3 months also. What I have found with the 6 months is that in order to make lasting changes, and that's what I feel like I can offer people, how can you have a set of skills that you've practiced enough that you can take forward in your life to use ongoingly so that you don't run into those situations like you have before. And
Okay.
then with my corporate programs and those things that will be determined, in the future. And then I'm also looking at offering um, a group coaching program in the spring, specifically related to the EFT, TFT, which a lot of people are interested in.
Thanks for explaining that. And what are the benefits of working with you? I mean, what does somebody get out of working with you? What's going to happen?
One of the things that I do with people in the very beginning is to sit down when we first initially meet to come up with what goals they have. And I guarantee somebody that after 6 months, if you haven't met those goals, I will continue to work with you until we have. So that's a guarantee that I have. As long as we're both doing the work and both doing what we need to do. Um,
That's
so,
fair.
I don't refund money because especially after we've worked together, but most people don't anyway. They want to get better and feel better. And what I have had people get in the end, you know, a lot of the benefits that people get out of it, they even have side effects of things that happen that they don't even know. But really what they want is to feel better. They don't want to feel so de-energized. They want to get away from the wine o'clock so that all they think about when they come home
Did
is a
you say
glass of
wine o'clock?
wine o'clock.
Okay. It's the first I've ever heard of that. Okay.
Where they come home and they're more concerned about getting that glass of wine that they want to decompress from the day than spend time with their kids.
Okay.
I've had people say when my 4-year-old said, "Mommy, do you need your glass of wine?" She knew it was time to she knew it was time to maybe that I
Oh
need to
my.
change something. But that
Yeah,
happens.
I'm not judging. I'm not. It's just, I'm trying to keep up with pop culture here and you are helping me. Thank you. All right. Carry
And,
on.
and so people, or they want to sleep better. So many people, they get to bed and they cannot go to sleep because they've got things ruminating in their head. So how would it be to be able to turn that off? Or how would it be to be able to pivot in the moment and not allow the situations outside of you to control what goes on inside of you? So I find that, and a lot of the clients that I've worked with have had so many different physiological changes, weight loss,
Oh,
be
wow.
able to, their A1C, they have had, as I said, better sleeping. It's almost like biohacking and anti-aging themselves. I have everybody take a picture before they start the program with me and then after. And it's amazing how they look because all of that energy we all have a limited amount of energy. And when you're spending it on stress and anxiety, you don't have it for other things. So how can you take back control of that?
Well said. Hey, you were talking about the better sleep piece of this. I just want to comment about a TED talk that I saw, and I thought of you. There was a gentleman who was a drummer. I don't know if you've ever seen this TED talk. I will have to forward it to you.
You
And
will.
and he had to do some tapping on his body in order to help himself sleep better at night. And he didn't know that that was a thing. He didn't know about tapping, which you know about, the tapping. I think you called it EFT and TFT, is that
EFT.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Right, right, and I thought of you immediately, and I know that you're talking about other things to sleep better at night, but you know things, and
Yeah.
this drummer really validated it because he was having insomnia because it took 5 cans of Red Bull to wake him up in the morning
Oh my
and
God.
5 cups of coffee at noon to keep him awake, and then
Yeah.
at bedtime, he was still so wired he couldn't sleep, and he ended up figuring out how to tap himself to a certain beat, and then he would sleep all night. People feel better when they get sleep. And if you
Oh,
can teach them how to do that, you have huge value.
thank
Huge.
you. And yes, the sleeping at night, again, it goes back to biology. The chemicals that your body produces when you are sleep deprived are so different than when you're well rested and have that energy again to do repair of your body overnight. You're not able to, and that's what leads to the aging also. So doing this kind of work can actually uh, change, as I said, almost be like anti-aging. As far as the TFT, which is the emotional freedom technique, and it's about tapping along your meridian points. And again, I know we're a lot of science people listening to this. It's actually one of the few holistic modalities recognized by the NIH. And so it's science-based, and it's all about releasing, different meridian points and releasing energy throughout your body. This type of work has been around much longer than Western medicine. So I think it's a great complement to the Western medicine. I would much rather see somebody try these techniques than be on a benzodiazepine forever, because the benzos don't always work and they are addictive. And if we can do something different, I say, why not try it?
Right. Like we talked about in the opening of this interview, you are giving people other options of what to try other than pills. You know, as the pill less pharmacist, LESS, pill less
Yep,
pharmacist, tapping or this heart math are two opportunities to sleep better, which you said, we all need. We all need sleep.
absolutely, we do.
Yep, I'll second that. All right. Well, hey, I know you've worked with clients before. Do you have a certain success story, a client success story that you would like to share so that my listeners can kind of get an idea of somebody who's done this?
I just was going through some. So I'll take something that's other than health. How about if I do something that's kind of different, that's other than health? So I had this person in a group program, and she really had a lot of self-doubt, really had a lot of negative thoughts about herself, did, not, and had some health issues. And after going through the program, using the inner balance, going through some of the things that we worked on, she started to do a couple of things that she had left behind. She had gotten, I don't want to talk about it, but she had some major um, life changes, unexpected, like in the 5 years previous to when we met and worked together. So she had been carrying around a lot, especially in 5 years, in the last 5 years. So what she went back to doing was painting, that she loves.
Hmm.
And she actually now has a website. She's painting, and she had an art exhibit in the last month.
Wow.
So I thought that was really phenomenal. A person that has had a health success was somebody that um, she had been through quite a bit again. She was having really bad, among other things, really bad reflux, like really bad, to the point where somebody in her family had like, I think, stomach cancer, one of them, and she was going for an endoscopy. They wanted her to go on proton pump inhibitor, and she did not want to. We worked together, and one of the things, she was having this situation in her life, and I recognized that, I felt like she really felt like her voice was not being heard, that she was being dismissed. And going through that whole process with her, and then going through these techniques, completely went away. Did not have to go on proton pump inhibitors, like, omeprazole, Protonix, whatever. Did not have to have the endoscopy, and it was gone, completely gone.
Wow. Has she had lasting change? I'm just curious if
Yes,
you've followed up with her. Yeah.
yes, yes. I talked to her in the last, because that was about a year ago. A year, and I talked to her just she just moved, and we were messaging back and forth. So I didn't talk to her, but I messaged with her, and yep, still no problems.
Well, congratulations to your patient and congratulations to you for helping her achieve that success.
Thank you. Yep. So that was
You're
pretty
welcome.
exciting.
Absolutely. Angela, I love your website. We already talked about it a little bit, but right front and center, you have a 6-minute guided meditation. That's angelaorrconsulting.com. 6-minute guided meditation. Can you talk about what is that supposed to do and why would anybody do it?
Well, that could be part of your 15 minutes a day of self-care. And what I really try to do in that meditation is to take the basic HeartMath tool, which is the heart activated breathing, and really have people practice that, because when you can really practice that and use that technique and that breathing, is 6 minutes on there, on that guided meditation. And I feel like the music that I was able to choose, and with the way that my voice is, it really is very calming, and it is
I
able,
agree.
thank you, it's able to bring people into a place where they can really be, um, to a really centered place internally. And I think that if they can use that consistently, then they can really have that muscle memory, as you said, of practicing that heart-centered breathing, so that when they need to do that, not listening to it, then they can have that skill to do it.
Oh, I agree. It brings together the breath and the emotional adjustment and the opportunity to do it for free
Yeah.
daily. I love
Yes,
it.
absolutely. And
Seriously.
it can be downloaded. So you don't have to
Oh, okay.
necessarily go to the website. It can be downloaded onto your phone or whatever. I made it downloadable.
Excellent. That you will improve your impact by having people be able to do that. Downloadable stuff is great because you can use it over and over again.
Yep.
Now, as far as breathing is concerned, for anybody who's kind of a novice about, breathing, I know we all do it every day. Okay. Please don't think I'm crazy. But seriously, I used to be what's called a chest breather, and it was more of a thoracic breath. But I have been trained to do more of a belly breath. Can you talk about both kinds? Which is the better kind, and what do you recommend?
The first thing is to really be aware at to really be aware of how you breathe. So many of us do that shallow breathing because, again, we are operating from fight or flight. The kids got to go to soccer. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to be home, make dinner. You know, you're just really, so to really become aware of how you breathe. Again, the better you can breathe, the better that you can oxygenate your body and change your biology and your chemistry. So whether you choose to do, like, there's so many different types of breathing out there. What my main message is to be aware and to really try to take it in from to to do the belly breathing, so that the breath goes deeper and can therefore penetrate more. So holding your hand on your belly and on your chest, and just really breathing in and out and feeling that. I think, it's not necessarily a belly breath or a chest breath, because there are, again, different people have different ideas of what those are. But I think being aware and trying to take in deeper breaths and hold it for a second and then exhale. Some people say breathe it in through your nose, breathe it out through your mouth. That's really good. But if you don't want to do that, even just breathing in and out through your nose, but being aware and taking more time for the sequence of breathing.
Well said. Well said. I'm a big proponent of the belly breathing. I did not know how I breathed. You brought up a great point. Take a few minutes to figure it out. Take a few minutes every single day to feel how you're doing. When you feel like you're holding your breath because you're waiting for bad news or something, take note of how you breathe after that. I just want to piggyback on what you were saying.
Yep,
Be
that's
aware of how you
perfect.
breathe.
Absolutely. And that's such a good point. Like, you hold your breath, like waiting for that other shoe to drop. And then, even more important, then how do you breathe after that?
Right, right. Go for the belly breathing, but it can take time to kind of reprogram your body.
It's a
Would you
skill.
Yeah,
It's a
would you
skill.
would you like to add anything onto that?
No, I think that's what you said it perfectly.
Awesome, awesome. Look at us working together. I love it.
Well, it's good because you have the experience of it. Like you said, you have not worked with me. You worked with some other people on
True.
some issues that you were having, but it coincides, or it's in line with what I talk about. So you
Mhm.
understand how what I do and some of the things that we're talking about, what a difference it can make. Because I don't know if you said it, you may have, and I may have missed it, but you were having problems with your voice, like you said, and you went for that, the counselor
Voice
and then
therapy.
the voice therapy and then the breathing. But then how did that end up after?
I have made vast improvements in my voice. I used to have I still have it. I have muscle tension dysphonia. And what that causes is my throat muscles to squeeze my throat area. And it actually made my voice higher. I have a younger sounding voice, it's a higher in register, higher in pitch. But once I started voice therapy and learned these breathing techniques, the psychological techniques, I was able to actually lower my voice, if you can believe that. I know it sounds crazy, but then my voice now sounds a little bit smoother, more consistent. I still have bad days. I still have muscle tension dysphonia. But to answer your question, I have muscle tension dysphonia. I have the squeeze, and the breathing and the mind body connection has only improved things.
Exactly. So that's what's really so interesting is that, again, along the same lines of what I do, but to show that the credibility that these type of things can make a difference in your life.
Absolutely.
That it's not something about just a woo-woo thing that, it's gonna make you feel better for the moment. No, it impacts people's lives because your voice is your life, is your livelihood.
Yeah, it's my moneymaker. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, this has been a great conversation. I hope that you feel validated in what you do if you didn't already. And I hope the listeners totally think that this is not just woo woo, but science based and will help them too.
Absolutely. And whether it's myself or somebody else that you're drawn to, I just deeply think that we all sometimes need to work with somebody to help with our blind spots, to help with accountability, to help teach new skills. If you're interested in working with me, wonderful. If you're interested in working with somebody else, wonderful. Whatever it is that you are drawn to, I say do it because it will make a difference for not only yourself, but for your entire sphere of influence.
That's a very rising tides lifts all boats type statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just want people to feel better.
I do. People,
Yeah.
people are tired of feeling tired. People are tired of feeling bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems. There are a lot of things wrong in the world, but there's a lot right.
That's true. And focusing on the right is part of that mind body connection. The breathing, the the joyful thoughts. Yeah. I've said enough. Is there anything else you would like to say in closing?
I just really appreciate the opportunity to share my message. I hope that others who are listening are inspired, and whether or not those listening are already have a business, especially because I know there's a lot of pharmacists, a lot of pharmacy interns, different people in the industry. We all have a story and we all need to have it told.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing how you use your voice here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Take care.
Thank you so much, Kim.
I'd like to share some final takeaways with you. The number one takeaway from this episode is that if you're interested in trying non-traditional healing modalities like meditation, breathing, HeartMath, and tapping, you can reach out to Angela Orr for help. You just heard her talk all about what she's passionate about. She loves helping people, especially pharmacists and other health professionals who take care of others. She has experience with these healing modalities that I mentioned, and she really cares about helping you feel better. The number two takeaway from this episode is that you need to check out that 6-minute guided meditation on Angela's website. You can find that at angelaorrconsulting.com. That's Angela O-R-R consulting.com. angelaorrconsulting.com. Now, I've done this guided meditation more than once, and I really like it. If you are new to meditation and you don't know what it's supposed to be like, Angela's website gives you a free sample. Try it today. Number three, my third takeaway is that the messaging on Angela's website really does speak to me. Where can you find that content, you may ask? Well, you can find it at angelaorrconsulting.com. I clicked on the Work With Me tab, and then I hit this other tab that says Inner Oasis. INNER, Inner Oasis, OASIS, Inner Oasis. And that's where I read all this content that I read on the podcast earlier. You work hard. You get things done. You take care of business. But who's taking care of you? Man, if you're a busy mom like me, that should really resonate. Dads do a good job too, but I'm just saying, it really resonated with me. Now, if you wish that you could hit the emotional reset button or feel less stressed and anxious or become more emotionally resilient and take more control of your energy, check out Angela's website, connect with her. She can help you. The better we take care of ourselves, the more we can help others. Those words should inspire you to take care of you. By the way, I am not compensated for any of these comments. I just really believe in what Angela does, and I think it's worth your time to at least check out the website and try the guided meditation. It just might be the best 6 minutes of your day. My fourth and final takeaway from this episode is the phrase, "wine o'clock." I'm not up on my slang, as you can tell, which always makes my younger son, Derek, the baseball umpire, cringe. But hey, if you resort to alcohol, food, drugs, and other numbing behaviors, I'm talking to you right now. If you're doing those things just to get through the day, maybe HeartMath, meditation, tapping, or some other healing modalities could help. If it's wine o'clock while you're listening to this, I hope that this episode has given you food or drink for thought. I just made a funny, haha. And I also hope that you feel inspired by how Angela uses her voice to help others. Her advocacy for pill less healing modalities and her passion for educating others about them is inspiring. Is there something you have a passion for? Be inspired to use your voice too. Thank you for listening to episode 189 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. What's in the show notes today? You'll find a link to Angela Orr's website, her social media links, heartmath.org, my social media links, and more. Please feel free to reach out to Angela and me and connect. If you know someone who would like this episode or needs to hear it, please share it with them. Maybe someone you know is feeling stressed or anxious and would like to hear this episode, or maybe even do that 6-minute meditation. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks again for listening. I'll be back next Friday, December 16th with a solo episode. I'll share some resources for pharmacist authors who want to narrate their own audiobook. I'll talk to you next week.